Hey, this is Ina Langerman from Violina.live, helping you along your musical journey. I want to talk about a very common bowing mistake that I see in a lot of beginner students. And this is particularly about concerning the incorrect bow tilt that I see so very often in students in around first year, maybe even second year, where they tilt the bow this way, where the stick is facing them and the hair is facing away, and this is incorrect. So just to reiterate properly, the stick has to be either directly above the hair, or it would be, in some cases, we tilt it this way, where we see the hair first and the stick a little bit behind it. This variation in the angle of the bow, it allows us to create different colors on the instruments, different dynamics versus so you can see, and also different parts of the bow. It's common for the hair to be flat with the stick, mostly from the balance point to the tip, and it's common for players to create that tilt by default near the frog, because it absorbs that extra weight. It can get very heavy if we use a lot of hair near the frog. Of course, there are instances where we do kind of break that rule for musical reasons, but that's for more advanced playing techniques. I want to talk about the beginner mistake, why this happens. And look, no matter how many times we tell our students, don't play with the bow tilted like this, straighten it, and we keep trying to correct their hand. Why does this happen? So there are three very, very common reasons for that. Of course, there are others, but I want to talk about kind of the top ones, the major ones that I observed that cause this, starting with the thumb, and actually just stiffness in the fingers, but mainly in the thumb. So it's very important that students are able to do this exercise right from the beginning. So the idea is to be able to control the tilt of the bow with their thumb, like this. And not just in the air. We also want them to practice doing this on the string. So if there are any teachers watching this, maybe this will be helpful. Some ideas here in this video. So that's the first thing. The other thing, it has a lot to do just with the bow hold itself and just the balance of the hand. So a lot of times when students learn how to hold the bow, they're taught kind of where all the fingers go, right? And then they try to be like, okay, I'm gonna be a really good student, I'm gonna do everything my teacher says, blah, 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 yes. And what does this result into? Very commonly, this results in having a very stiff bow hand in all parts of the bow. The problem is that the bow hand, it actually needs to be dynamic. What do I mean by dynamic? Dynamic means it has to adapt to what's going on. So if I'm playing up here, over here by the frog, I want to adapt to this weight, and I'm going to just tap my fingers to kind of let the fingers rest on top of the stick. This is really important also, is that the fingers have to be on top of the stick and not to the side like this. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, if I take this, and this is a good exercise actually, you can give this a try yourself if this is something you're struggling with. Lift the bow and place it in a different part. And tap your fingers again. See where that balance is, and you want to try to keep that stick on top of the hair. And in order to keep it there, notice that again the fingers are on top of the stick. Notice also that this is different from this. I have to kind of rebalance everything over here. So I'm going to try this also at the tip. So gently put the bow down at the tip. And notice here, it looks completely different. Okay, notice that my wrist is in a totally different place. And actually right now, now that I'm here, I want to talk about this. This is the second very common issue, is that students get kind of locked into this position where the wrist is too low, and they take this bow hold right here and they don't change it and bring it. I'm trying not to change it. I'm trying to do it incorrectly. And if I take this exact same hold and I bring it anywhere else in the bow, look what happens. There's that bow tilt that we're trying to avoid, because this did not change. I took this from, it works at the tip, but the moment we go up bow, we have to rebalance the hand. This is so important. So actually, in addition to the thumb, so just check that the fingers are on top of the stick, not coming from the side. And the next thing, we have to pay attention to where the wrist is in relation to the knuckles here. In general, kind of like the default setting, I would say, and I'm kind of going to use the balance point to demonstrate. I'm going to try to keep the knuckles and wrist kind of aligned, so they kind of support, the wrist has to kind of support the hand. But also notice that different players, if you look at the great players and compare Jascha Heifetz to, let's say, Hilary Hahn, they hold their bows very differently and they produce their sound very differently. However, notice that both of them create a very balanced bow arm. Whether it's like the more Russian bow hold or like the standard Franco-Belgian or Galamian. So the other parts of the arm, they have to kind of adapt to find that balance. And that's a really, really big deal when it comes to keeping that bow tilt consistent. So I definitely suggest to practice long tones. We're going to practice long tones, and also we're going to see what happens during string crossings, because actually string crossings is another culprit where commonly, like I'll see a student play right, and then they go to another string, and then what happens is they go like this when they change strings. You see what happened? This is also a pretty common situation. So we want to learn how to lead with the elbow, the string crossings. At the end of the old note, the elbow goes down, and I'm on the D string. So that all of this kind of remains consistent. So if I go to the E string, it's the same thing going back. So if I'm going right here, this can happen. Sometimes I see students go like this, and they try their best to, they learn how to do string crossings with their wrist, but in this situation it doesn't work, right? There's that bow tilt that we don't want. And now the wrist has collapsed. So this is, I see this all the time, and we want to, again, practice this. We want to practice getting the elbow to lead. And yes, of course, there will be instances in music where we are going to need to do this, but the elbow still has to be on the right level, okay? And when we do this, it's not this, okay? So 2 exercises. 1, very simple, I'm gonna hook the bow here and just practice this motion. The idea is that the elbow is leading the string crossings, okay? Just to practice doing it. And the bow hand is just hanging there, okay? Like I can even tap all my fingers to make sure that they're not doing any of this. No stiffness, just on top of the stick, okay? So the next thing, you can copy this exercise in the upper half. You don't have to go all the way across all strings, but just to feel the fingers on top of the stick like this, so they're not so that they are not doing this, okay? So the next one is simply, we're gonna play open strings. You can choose any, or you could choose any note you wish on the instrument. And I'm just gonna do, not too fast, I'm just gonna do upper half, and we wanna monitor really carefully in the mirror or with a selfie cam, like I'm doing right now. That's how I'm recording this video for you guys. Or you can always have somebody at home observing you, but it's very important to monitor. You can also record yourself and check after. You want to monitor that the stick is staying on top of the hair. Okay. So you might notice right here in the middle, and the bow will want to, it's made to bounce, right? In the middle right here, the bow, it gets a little bit weaker as we approach that balance point. Because right here at the balance point, and we're going to do that later. So we want to watch right here. So it's not collapsing that way. So now we'll do the same thing in the lower half. Now, for a lot of folks, I do recommend, and I do this myself a lot, is once we get past the balance point, is that we tilt the bow this way a little bit, the other way. So the stick faces away from you a little bit. But we want to get it flat, right around the balance point. And the idea again is just to kind of be observant that it stays on the contact point, right in the middle, or wherever you choose. If you choose to do it near the bridge, just to kind of observe what's happening, because it's very easy once we start playing scales, once we start playing a piece, to let that go. So when you go practicing the pieces, it's important to practice in small chunks. Don't practice a lot of the music at once. Okay, so choose a small section, repeat it several times, really observe. If it's difficult, because you have to pay attention to the notes, record yourself and make changes when you do the repetitions. Okay, so these are kind of my biggest tips on this topic. I'm sure I left some things out. So let me know your biggest takeaway in the comment section below. Till next time, happy practicing.